This is Bill Acevedo with Dell Networking on Minimum Tech Talk. Today's feature is going to be Traffic Analyzer, and this is the last and final part of a three-part series, a mini-series on TFA. We're going to talk today about TFA reports and capacity planning. Okay, today my panelist is Brandon Norgard, and he's going to show us TFA reporting and capacity planning.
Thank you, Bill.
Let me move this over here.
Okay, so some of you guys attended the previous two events that we had. The first of which, where we talked about diagnosing problems in your network based on TFA data. The second was about security. Now this one today is about medium to long-term reporting and planning. So similar to the previous presentations, we're going to start by going to the traffic flow network item here, and we see all of these portlets. And for long-term planning and reporting, probably what's most important, what we probably want to look at first, is the protocols. So what are the protocols that are being used? TCP is quite important. UDP. We can change this. We can look at short term, like the last hour, or we can see longer term, like the last 24 hours. We can go the last 5 days. We can go for much longer periods of time and see what's going on with that. Get just a little bit of information about every one of these 8 ways of summarizing the data from this view. The best way to do this is to expand this into the maximized portlet, where we have the line graph over time, and we can see, if we're interested, probably, let's say, the last 30 days. We can just kind of keep it on that because this is a long-term thing. We can also, if we want, look at the last 12 months, which is where it's actually going to show weekly data. We can see all that data there. If I want, I can show the last 12 months, and I can show the daily data. I can change it to show daily data. I don't necessarily have daily data going back 12 months. This is something where if you're a user, you probably want to take a look at this. You might want to change some of these retention settings, but also keep in mind the data usage. But definitely, if you're interested in medium to long-term planning and reporting, then it's going to take up a lot of data. But it doesn't need to overwhelm your disk. You just need to just keep it in mind. So let me change this back to the last 30 days. Another thing that we're interested in is that the traffic flow data a lot of times is going to come in sampled. So we get these sample packets saying, we got TCP data sent from this IP address to this other IP address, and here is the bytes. And it represents a sample of 1 out of 1,000. Well, now, by default, it's going to show the reported sampled values. But you're probably interested, if you're doing long-term reporting and planning, you're interested in the estimates. So what that does is it takes the sample rate and extrapolates an estimate of what the overall is. And also, probably we're interested, we might be interested in bytes, but we're probably also more interested in the bits per second. So we can look at that. We can see, for here, the UDP and TCP traffic over the last 30 days. These are the estimates. Now, I guess we might also be interested not just in these protocols, but to get more specific. These are layers 3 and 4 protocols. If we want to get more specific, we can look at application layer protocols, and so we can see all of these. I'm interested in more than just the top 5. I want to see the top 25. There's quite a few of them here. So if I want to know what applications are being used a lot over the last 30 days, then I can see that here. For example, I could see LDAP, if I'm interested in that. I could see, I think I saw here, Adobe Server. And and you what's probably also quite important is you can look at it overall of your network as a whole, or you can make it more specific to exporters. So that's if I want to get into the context of a specific exporter of all of the traffic going through that exporter, then I can click on one of these here. And then I can see what is the traffic that is going through that. What are the applications going through that? You might see that one of these exporters, one of the switches or routers in your network is being underutilized or overutilized. So maybe you could distribute the traffic a little bit better by changing some of the routing options. Or you can you might also see a certain trend over time. Like over time, the BPS keeps going up, and therefore you would know that you need to maybe get more resources. You expect it to keep growing because you're getting more subscribers online or more people using your network. Now keep in mind, anytime you see this data here, you can always export it to CSV at any time, and you can also at any time, once you have this all in place here, once you've done all your settings, and this is something you want to go to on a regular basis, you can always say that you want to save the snapshot, and that'll save the relative time frame and the total amount of time, the fact that you have it on estimates and BPS, so you don't have to click and select all of that every time. You can just, okay, I want to load this, I want to save the snapshot. I give it a name here, and I can bring it back up later. Let me just make sure I covered all the points I wanted to make here. I was kind of figuring this presentation would be just a little bit shorter than the last two. We covered a lot of the same ground, but this is just a different angle on it, rather than looking at diagnosing problems, which is I talked about that a few weeks ago. We also talked about how you can use this for security to see the potential security issues. And this is here today. We're talking about long-term planning, which is more looking at what's going on over the last several days, weeks, etc. And so I think we've pretty much covered everything. This is the traffic flow analyzer tool is quite powerful, and it's available with OpenManage, and as long as you know how to use all of it, and that's kind of the point of what we're doing here. We want to show you how you can use it and all this stuff. Actually, there's one thing I wanted to mention as well, is that all of this data is available in the reports as well. So the reports tab on the left here, we can create report templates and generate reports for any category of data, including the traffic flow analyzer data. So, for example, I can create a report template. It's just an example here, and I can go to the source and say that there is a category for the traffic flow analyzer data. We can see which columns do we want to see on the report. We can create a report with that. We can see if I were to, for example, do this for applications, I could have a report with the application name, bits per second, bytes, and packets all alongside each other, and also the time that this took place. If I was also interested, I could create a different report that had the aggregate data, in which case you wouldn't want the time, because the idea is a report containing any one of those values. There's going to be one value for each entity, each application, and that average or sum would be calculated for the full duration of your report. So I guess now maybe we'll turn it over to questions. I'm not sure if I went too fast on any of this, or if you guys want some additional clarification. Okay, looks like we do have a question here. Okay, the question is, how do I see the bandwidth for a switch as a whole versus the at the interface level. Okay, so let me go back to the traffic flow here, and go back to traffic flow exporters. Now this is what we're looking at here is OMM 6.2 Service Pack 1. Now with Service Pack 2, we made it more powerful. So right now, I guess we have to look at, we can see by IP address that those do represent the exporter as a whole, and then in the case here, we have it differentiated by the interface as well. But with Service Pack 2, actually, it's going to make it a lot more easy to view it based on the switch or router as a whole or the porter interface. So that's coming. In fact, we'll do a tech talk when that comes out, and we'll show all the new features. Okay. And I'm looking at here, someone wants to know about the reports that I was just showing. When we do a report, could you have a report that is a graph, not just a table showing the data, but also the graph? And in fact, that's another feature that's coming out with SP2. It's called a trend report. So we're gonna make it so that if I go back over to it here, so we do have trend reports for performance monitoring data, but with SP2, you will also be able to see in the source here, there'll be another category for the traffic flow analyzer data. And you'll be able to essentially, generate those reports automatically and even have them emailed to you daily if you want to show the bandwidth usage over the last 24 hours. That's just one potential usage, but that's a very powerful feature as well. Okay, and so another thing we want to ask is we want to say, we want to know what, we want to get your feedback on ideas for future tech talks. So if anybody has any suggestions for that, just go ahead and forward them on, and we'll put that on the schedule for the future.
Yeah, and we'd like to open this up as well to other questions on OMM, not just TFA. So if you do have other questions, again, feel free to type them in the chat window or in the questions option, and we'll look at those and see if we can answer those today. Did you have any more questions on there, Brandon?
I think that's about all. That's all we have. Yeah. So if you do have questions, go ahead and send them to Dell@DoradoSoftware.com. Okay. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Yeah. That's it. Then I guess we'll wrap up the meeting, and we'll see you next time on Dell OMM Tech Talk.